9 weird things our ancestors did. They say to understand the present, we need to consider our past. But what about the weird historical practices? Every culture throughout history has been filled with differences from every side of life. Some of these might seem bizarre to one culture, where to another they're perfectly normal. However, history has told us that there are some practices done in ancient times that are so bizarre, they're absolutely weird to this day. We aren't talking about silly traditions like your grandparents putting WD-40 on their achy joints and walking around everywhere with a crow's foot in their pocket. From not being able to cry at funerals to dyeing their hair using harmful, dangerous, and potentially life-threatening chemicals. There were all sorts of things people did in the past that would be considered outright strange in today's society. Now, keep watching for 9 things people in history did that would be totally weird today. Number 9. In ancient China, husbands left their wives for talking too much. Yep, you heard that right. Back in ancient Chinese days, women had very limited rights. Married women were not allowed to do anything without the permission of their husband. In fact, women in ancient China were treated like lower-class members of society. They were not allowed to go outdoors, and they had to obey all commands from their husband. If they were not married, they had to obey their fathers. One of these things included talking. If a woman talked too much, a husband had the right to leave her. Crazy, right? These marriages were usually arranged. In fact, most women preparing for marriage in ancient China didn't meet their husband until the day of the wedding. Crazy, right? Number 8. Ancient Egyptians shaved off their eyebrows to mourn their dead cats. Ancient Egyptians loved their cats. In fact, they worshipped them. The death of one of these creatures resulted in a very bizarre practice of shaving off one's eyebrows to mourn. The goddess Bastet, who was one of the goddess of homes, cats, and fertility, was often depicted as a cat. Cats were considered sacred, and if they came into your home, it meant good luck for you. Killing a cat would be considered sacrilege, and you'd be sentenced to death. Definitely a weird historical practice, but then again, if you're a cat person, you may be able to understand them, because we all know how weird people who own cats are. Number 7. Historical chest augmentation. Breast augmentation isn't just a thing from modern times. In fact, beauty refinement has been a part of culture since ancient times. However, the first chest augmentation surgery was performed in 1895 by a doctor named Vincenz Cerny. Doctors would use ivory, glass balls, ground rubber, and even stones to pack inside the tissue to give the illusion of a fuller, plumper bosom. Number 6. Dyeing your hair in harmful chemicals. Many cultures have resorted to dyeing their hair throughout history. However, ancient Romans and Greeks used to use strong chemicals like sulfur to dye their hair. In the 1700s and 1800s, European ladies would use chemicals mixed with lead and lye to achieve the right colors. Fortunately, now we don't have to risk lead poisoning to have a nice hairdo. Number 5. Communal bathrooms. Public lavatories were not only common practice in ancient Rome, they were downright enjoyed. Going to the bathroom was once a highly social experience. Only the wealthiest people could afford a private bathroom in the ancient times. Number 4. Drilling holes into your brain. Many people who suffered from mental disabilities or any disorder pertaining to the brain were often sent to doctors in medieval times to have bad spirits extracted from their brain. They would drill a hole into your skull and release the spirits. Fortunately today, this practice is extinct. Number 3. Women were not allowed to cry at funerals in ancient Rome. For a brief time, funerals were somewhat of an elaborate affair in ancient Rome. Women were hired to weep, and even scratch their faces or rip out their hair until blood came out. This practice was deemed too extreme for the citizens, and thus, women were no longer allowed to cry at funerals thereafter. Number 2. Roman fathers could kill their daughters' lovers. They could also kill their daughters if they felt it necessary. Women were not allowed to have relations outside of marriage, and even after they married, Roman women were always still bound to their father's family. Any infidelity or acts that may cause a bad name for their house would legally allow the father to kill his daughter's lover. Number 1. Animal poop was used in medicine. It was once common practice to use animal feces in medical treatment, including the use of crocodile dung as a contraceptive in Rome. Sheep droppings were used to treat smallpox in Scotland, animal dung for warriors' wounds in Egypt, as well as pig droppings used to treat nosebleeds. Thankfully, this is no longer the case. Now that you know 9 things that people did in history that would be considered totally weird today, here are some weird eyebrow practices and rituals that ancient people did in the past that are just plain strange. Ancient Egyptians, eyebrows of Horus. From 3500 BC to 2500 BC, Egyptian men and women were known to wear makeup. Why? Because they believed that makeup had supernatural powers. This was done for the god Horus, and the makeup usually consisted of eyes, where they were very heavily lined. Men and women darkened their eyebrows, arched them, and even elongated them by using carbon and substances with black oxide to make their brows more prominent. The more you know. Ancient Greece. Between 800 BC and 146 BC, beauty rituals emphasized beauty. Married women would often go for the more natural look, while women who were not married would put black incense on their eyebrows. In fact, did you know that back then, a unibrow was considered to be a beautiful trait on a woman? Ancient Rome. Between 753 BC and 476 AD, Roman women also sported the unibrow, which became one of the most desirable characteristics in a woman. The unibrow was actually considered to be a sign of intelligence. The Middle Ages. During the Middle Ages, medieval women plucked their eyebrows quite heavily. Yep, you heard that right. This overplucked look was sported by medieval women during the Middle Ages and during the Elizabethan era. You may be surprised to find out that women actually dyed their eyebrows red. The 1920s, similar to the Middle Ages needle thing, overplucked brows were totally a thing during the Roaring '20s. Women plucked their eyebrows in the hopes of looking similar to famous silent film star Clara Bow, who sported the famous overplucked eyebrow look. So, now that you know some strange historical practices which would be considered weird today, what do you think was the most surprising or strange thing that people did in history? Let us know in the comment section below. Enjoyed this video? Hit like, share, and subscribe to What the Facts. Wait, why don't you fact off with these other awesome videos? Go ahead, choose the left or the right video and enjoy.